Hello and welcome to PMP Exam in a nutshell. I am Muhammad Radi, Director of Project Metric Solutions. Our methodology to start with the initiating process group till we finish up to closing process group. Last sessions we have started to talk about when you accomplish a project. So you need to get a scope management plan and scope baseline and requirement management plan. Then you need to get a schedule to accomplish your project in terms of start and finish date. And then you need a budget and to know the how much is enough for your project and how to manage your budget. And then you got to get quality management plan and the process improvement plan. And you need an individual or human resource to accomplish your projects. So you need a plan for that. Then you need to communicate with your team members and sponsor stakeholders. So you need communication management plan. And if anything goes right, it might go wrong. So you need to get a risk management plan. All these under planning process group. This session, we are going to talk about two things, the procurement management plan and the stakeholder management plan. So in the under the planning process group, the procurement management plan, there is the under there is a planning under the project procurement management chapter 12 page 355, the knowledge area. What the learning objective here, we're gonna get work only with one process, which is called plan procurement management, and you're gonna get to know how to control, how to know the input, the outputs, and tool and technique. Now, what the outputs here, the major outputs that I like you to focus and memorize it if you can, the procurement management plan, procurement documents, procurement statement of work, make or buy decision, and the source selection criteria. What the contents of your procurement management plan? It should address determining what, how, and when to procure, reviewing risk involved within make or buy decisions, reviewing the type of contract to be used, mitigate risk and transfer risk to the seller, documenting product requirement and the potential sellers, and you're going to get settlement of contract, including open items. So, having said that, we need to talk about the inputs, the tool and technique, and the outputs. Here, the inputs here is we are going to talk about the requirement documentation, risk register, activity resource requirement, activity cost estimate, stakeholder register. This is we are going to talk about it next video. And the tool and technique, it is make or buy analysis, market research, meetings, expert judgment. So outputs here, we are going to talk about the outputs, procurement management plan, the procurement statement of work up to updating your project. Very important to know about the organization process assets. What's in there in the organization process assets? You find documents, it's the contract type. So you have to know what's your company inclined to work with, what type of contract. There are three major parts: fixed price or cost reimbursable or time and material. Under the fixed price, there is firm fixed price or fixed price with economic price adjustment or fixed price incentive fee. The second part, cost reimbursable, it has three things underneath: cost plus fixed fees, cost plus incentive fee, buyer-seller ratio, cost plus fee. And you have to also understand what the who's going to take the risk, whether the reseller and which type, and this is target in the exam, who is taking the risk when you develop the contract, the seller, the buyer, or both. If you have a chance to memorize it, please do, because this is usually comes in the exam. Another equation called point of total assumption. It's not in the PMBOK guide, but here I have the equation for you here. It is straightforward. It is the point of total assumption only applies to fixed price incentive fee contract. So it is the point of total assumption. What that mean? The cost point at which the seller assumes 100% of the risk of additional cost increase. You have a deal with your seller to accomplish something, so you got to the point that he will resume or take the risk if any extra money should be paid. In the exam, when you have a buyer and seller ratio, try to to know that the first number here goes to the buyer, and the second numbers for the ratio goes to the seller. So the first number the buyer will keep, the second number the amount the seller will keep. So this is the called buyer seller ratio or sharing ratio, unless in the exam they told you that otherwise. So basically the ratio, the first numbers goes to the buyer, the second numbers goes to the seller. Now we're going to talk about the tool and technique. Tool and technique, you are going to talk about something called make or buy analysis. It is if a product can be produced cost effectively internally or externally, which means should we lease or buy the instrument or computers? That must include both indirect and direct costs on both sides of make or buy scenario. Project manager is responsible for this. So what the factors here? So the factors might goes to the cost, to the human resources, the risk, the skills acquisition, the skills availability, the reason to make in house less cost, staff available, deal with the risk, the reason to buy less cost, vendor available, transfer the risk. So you are not going to bother with any risk you have. Skills are not important to the organization. In-house skills are not available. Example, for example, you have here, you decided to buy an instrument or machine. So you have, for example, it costs you on daily $180. When you buy it, it's going to cost you thousands and 600. So the daily cost is $20. So we came up with the equation. It's if you're gonna lease it, you're gonna do need 10 days equal the buy cost. So if you are planning to use it for fewer than 10 days, then you should lease. This is an example of make or buy analysis. Tool and technique here. Also, I need to get the market research and meetings and to use the expert judgment. Now, what the output here? The output here, this is the procurement management plan. Who will do what? Roles and responsibility of the project manager, the team and sponsor, how processes will be managed, what type of contract to be used, evaluation criteria, what can team do. All these will be in your plan. So there is another output here called the procurement statement of work. So the work to be done on each procurement is called the procurement statement of work. It must be clear, complete, and concise as possible to be submitted to the seller. Another output called the procurement documents, which is the initial or the acronym IFB, RFI, what stand for invitation for bid, request for information, request for quote, request for proposal. So you have all of these in a table. You look at it, familiarize yourself with it, and then you have source of selection criteria, which is um, point scoring system to read the proposal coming from different sellers. And then you have to document your decision in terms of make or buy decisions. So documented decision of what to procure and what will be completed. The last things here of the output here, you're going to have change request and to update your project document, requirement documentation, requirement traceability metrics, and risk register. Now, the next video is going to be about um, planning for the stakeholder management. So the planning procurement and then the planning stakeholder management, and this is the last thing in your planning. So under planning process group, there is a stakeholder management plan under the knowledge area project stakeholder management, chapter 13, page 391. So what the definition of the stakeholders? It is new. Chapter 13 is new in the PMP Guide 5th edition. So you have to familiarize yourself with the definition. It is an individual or an organization that could impact or be impacted positively or negatively by the project execution. A project can have a wide spectrum of stakeholders, from the project sponsor to an environmental organization to an ordinary citizen. What the purpose? It is includes the process of developing appropriate strategies to effectively engage all the stakeholders through the project life cycle, their needs, interests, and potential impact. So what the output of the stakeholders here? The major output here, stakeholder register, stakeholder management plan, and the issue log. Try to know the difference between the stakeholder register issue log. Both are documents. They are not part of the project management plan. So the major output here, as I said, is stakeholders. So I'd like you to learning objective here. We have done in the stakeholder management, we talked about the identify stakeholders, which is in the initiating process group. Here we are going only to talk about the plan stakeholder management, which is in planning. The managed stakeholder engagement is in execution. The control, it is in monitoring and control. What the inputs here is stakeholder register, and you're going to get the output here is stakeholder management plan, and then you are going to update. It is straightforward. It's inputs project management plan. We've talked about this stakeholder register. It is output of identify stakeholders. We talked about it, and enterprise environmental factors and organization process assets. So this is basically the inputs. What the output here, the tool and technique, expert judgment, meetings, analytical technique, and you have here the output, your management plan, and updating stakeholder register, stakeholder management plan. So what do you expect to talk about the next video? We have done the planning process group. Think of executing processing group. And this is the planning process, when we talked about the stakeholders, that the last step of planning in the planning process group. Then next video, we are going to talk executing processing group. If you like my video, please subscribe, share, go to projectmetricsolution.com, get the resources there and download any links for free. Thank you.